I remember the way my mom said it. So casual, so clean. Flights are 200 each. If you can't afford it, stay behind. I was still in my nurse scrubs, wiping sweat from a 12-hour shift when I heard her say it on speaker. I didn't argue. I nodded like I always did, like it didn't sting. Until a notification pinged on my phone. My credit card had just been used to purchase 4 business class tickets for them, not for me. That moment cracked something inside me. Something quiet, something long overdue. So I tapped, dispute all, locked the account, and stayed behind. But not in the way they thought. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about finally drawing the line. And when my father showed up at my door the next morning demanding answers, I didn't open it. Because I finally understood. I wasn't their daughter, I was their funding. The call came just as I was peeling off my gloves at the hospital. A double shift, no lunch, 3 back-to-back traumas. I hadn't even taken off my scrubs when my phone rang. It was Mom. I hit speaker with one hand while untying my shoes with the other. Her voice came through clear, chipper. "Flights are 1,200 each," she said. "If you can't afford it, sweetie, just stay behind." No warmth, no offer, no hesitation. I blinked, sitting on the edge of my bed, trying not to react. I had just spent 14 hours tending to patients, some grateful, some yelling, some bleeding. My lower back throbbed from standing so long, and my feet felt like bricks. But her words? They sliced through all that. I didn't argue. Didn't ask why I wasn't included. I just said, "Okay, Mom," and smiled into the air like it didn't sting. It wasn't the first time. They were heading to Maui, Mom, Dad, my sister Danielle, her husband Grant. I was the only one not invited directly, just a passing line about price and who could or couldn't make it. I set the phone down and walked to the kitchen for water. That's when it happened. A ping. A vibration. Then another ping. I glanced down. Credit card alert. 800. Airline purchase. 4 business class tickets. I froze. My hand shook as I opened the app. I scanned the names on the passenger list. Danielle Carter. Grant T. Sandra Carter. William Carter. No Madeline. My name wasn't there. But the card? The card was mine. They had done it again. No call, no text, no "do you mind?" Just took it, like it belonged to them. Like I was the family expense account on legs. I stared at the screen so long the phone dimmed. Then something inside me clicked, but not like before. Not the quiet, tired click of surrender. This was louder, sharper, final. I tapped, dispute all. Then, lock card. Then, new card requested. Just like that. The next ping was from Danielle. "Danielle, why is nothing paid for? We're at check-in." I stared at it, blank. Then I replied, "What you said." I stayed behind. And I did. But not in the way they expected. That night I didn't cry. I didn't spiral. I pulled out my laptop, went to a travel site, and booked myself a last-minute weekend in Sedona. Nothing fancy, no business class, just silence. Nature. Something mine. And when I powered off my phone, the world went quiet. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the unpaid daughter, the reliable sister, the substitute parent. I felt like someone about to get her life back. I didn't grow up thinking my family was cruel. I just thought they were forgetful. Forgetful of birthdays, of promises, of boundaries. The first time they used my credit card without asking, I was 22. Danielle had just gotten engaged and needed a designer dress for her party. "Just a temporary swipe," she said, smiling while holding my wallet. "You're in scrubs all day anyway, Mads. You won't miss it." The dress was $600. She never paid me back. I didn't push. I told myself she'd forgotten. She hadn't. Then came the loan Dad asked me to co-sign. "It's for the kitchen," he insisted. "It adds value to the house. And one day, that house will be yours too." I was working 50-plus hours a week, rotating night shifts, barely sleeping. I signed the form. The house was refinanced 2 more times and the money went to bail out Grant's second failed business. No one told me. When Mom needed dental work last year, I covered the 400 deductible. "You're so good with money," she said. "I don't know how you do it all." She Venmo'd me $50. Once. Labeled it, "thanks." At the time, I thought, Maybe this is what being the strong one looks like. But over time, being the strong one just meant being the one they could take from without guilt. No one asked how my student loans were going. No one noticed when I switched to ramen 3 nights a week to make rent. No one offered to bring soup when I got sick last winter and still dragged myself to the ER ward with a fever. I had become the predictable daughter, the one who didn't complain, the one who always had a little extra, or so they assumed. But inside, I was crumbling, quietly, like drywall behind a perfectly painted wall. I didn't even recognize how much I'd been bleeding until the bleeding stopped. The Hawaii trip was just the latest offense, but it wasn't the worst. It was the accumulation that broke me. Every ignored text, every "we'll pay you back" that turned into silence, every favor that morphed into expectation. I used to think saying no would make me a bad daughter. Now I saw the truth. They never gave me the option. It wasn't family. It was a pattern. A pattern I had participated in, enabled, because I was too tired to fight, too scared to be seen as selfish. But after that night, the dispute, the silence, the travel booking, something shifted. I wasn't scared anymore. Because what's scarier than being alone? Being surrounded by people who only love you when you're useful. So I chose alone. And for the first time, it felt like peace. The morning after I locked the account, I woke to silence. No missed calls, no family group texts, just the hum of my air conditioner and the distant rhythm of city traffic through the window. I made myself a cup of coffee, sat at the table like it was any other morning. And then my phone buzzed. "Danielle, why is nothing paid for? We're at check-in." I stared at it for a moment, the absurdity of the question washing over me like cold rain. Not, "Hey, did something happen?" Not, "Was there a problem with the card?" Just, "Why haven't you played your part in this show like you always do?" I wiped a crumb from the corner of my mouth, picked up my phone, typed slowly. "What you said." I stayed behind. I imagined her confusion, the flicker of realization on her face. Then the panic, then the anger. But I didn't wait for her reply. Instead, I opened my laptop, searched quiet getaways near Arizona. Something warm, something with a canyon maybe, somewhere the phone signal wouldn't reach. Sedona. I booked it. A modest Airbnb tucked into the Red Rock Hills. 3 nights, 1 guest. Just enough. It wasn't revenge. It was restoration. No 5-star resort, no champagne in first class. Just stillness, air that didn't smell like bleach or antiseptic, time that belonged to me. I packed light, a book, a sweater, my hiking shoes, and the quietest version of myself. As I zipped my duffel, my phone rang. "Dad." I didn't answer. He called again. And again. I placed the phone face down. Somewhere in an airport lounge, they were probably scrambling, trying to rebook, trying to figure out what went wrong, what I had done wrong. But I didn't feel wrong. I felt present. It was the first time in years I didn't feel guilty for not picking up, for not fixing something, for not being their silent safety net. That night, I drove out of the city. No calls, no detours, no just checking in. Just me, headlights slicing through the highway, windows cracked to let the desert air in. For once, I wasn't fleeing. I was choosing. And in that choice, I felt something new rise in me, not bitterness, not spite, but something more precise. A boundary. Sharp, clear. Mine. When I reached the edge of Sedona, the sun was just beginning to set. The sky was every shade of fire and freedom. I pulled over, stepped out of the car, and let the wind hit my face. This is what staying behind looks like. And I had never felt more ahead. I had just come back from my walk, red dust on my sneakers, sun still warming my arms when my phone started buzzing again. Dad calling. I ignored it. Then came the text. "We need to talk, I'm outside." I froze. My eyes moved slowly to the window of my apartment in Phoenix. Sure enough, parked just across the street was my father's silver Hyundai. He got out, still wearing a Hawaiian print shirt, like he'd stepped out of a vacation brochure. Except his expression wasn't relaxed. It was stormy. He crossed the street, knocked on the door. Hard. "Madeline," he called out, "open up." I didn't move. He knocked again. Louder this time. Don't be ridiculous. We need to talk about what you did. What I did. Like I had caused the mess. Like I was the one who betrayed someone. I sat down on the couch, phone still in hand, heart beating steadily, not panicked, just anchored. The knocks kept coming. I thought about the last time I saw him face to face. It was 6 months ago, after his blood pressure spiked and he refused to go to urgent care. Guess who paid the deductible and filled his prescription? He didn't say thank you. He just texted, handled. That's what I'd become in this family. A handler, a fixer, an unacknowledged pillar they leaned on but never looked at. I thought of the winter I had the flu, barely able to stand, coughing through a fever. I'd asked Mom to drop off soup. She'd replied, I promised Danielle I'd babysit while she gets her nails done. You understand, right? I did. I always did. But now? No. The knocking finally stopped. I heard the car start again. Watched through the peephole as Dad drove off, stiff and fuming, like I'd ruined his vacation with my nerve. He was there for 7 minutes. I counted. Later that evening, my phone pinged. Voicemail from Mom. I listened with headphones, sitting at my desk. Her voice was thin, wounded. You really hurt your father today. He flew back early to speak to you. After everything we've done for you. I paused the message. What had they done for me? Besides take? Besides drain me? I saved the voicemail. Not out of sentiment. Out of caution. Evidence, in case the story changed later. Because it always did. First, I was the good daughter. Then I was too quiet. Now, apparently, I was spiteful. But I wasn't being spiteful. I was being clear. And clarity, to people who thrive in chaos, looks like betrayal. That night, I didn't cry. I wrote in my journal instead, today I didn't open the door. And for once, the guilt stayed on their side of it. The idea came to me like a whisper. Not a shout. Not revenge. Just math. It was 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I sat at my desk, staring at the locked screen of my laptop like it owed me answers. And maybe it did. Because I started thinking not just about that flight, but about all of it. The dress, the deductible, the groceries, the rent loans. Every dollar I had handed over quietly, expected to forget. So I opened a spreadsheet. I titled it, Family Subsidies, Madeline Carter, last 24 months. Line by line, I filled it in. 600 Danielle's engagement dress. 500, loan to Danielle, grant during his unemployment. 800, Dad's out-of-pocket MRI deductible. 420 groceries I covered when Mom forgot to Venmo me back. 800, 4 business class tickets to Hawaii charged without consent. 150, late payment fee from credit card interest after said charge. I added a footnote. Emotional labor not included. Total, 270. I stared at that number, then sat back in my chair. That's nearly 3 months of rent. Nearly all my remaining student debt. That's my freedom. I didn't feel angry. I felt factual. So I turned the spreadsheet into a PDF. Gave it a new title. Reimbursement Request, Unauthorized Charges and Support Balance. Then I attached it in an email to the family group chat. Subject line. Per your belief that families support one another, please see breakdown below. I added one note in the body of the message. Effective immediately, I will no longer be subsidizing family expenses. Full repayment expected within 30 business days. After that, formal dispute filings will be made with my credit provider. No further financial interaction will be permitted. I hovered over the send button, paused, then clicked. I shut my laptop and went to bed. By the time I woke up, the group chat had erupted. Danielle, are you serious? Who sends an invoice to their own family? Mom, Madeline, this is hurtful and unnecessary. You're making things worse. Dad, we raised you better than this. That last line, that was the match. Because the truth was, they didn't raise me. I raised myself. Through night shifts, overdraft notices, and being everyone's backup plan. I took a deep breath, opened the chat, and typed, No, you didn't raise me. I was just easy to lean on. But I've stopped bending. Then I blocked Danielle. I left Mom and Dad unblocked out of curiosity more than mercy. because I wanted to see how far the denial would stretch. Turns out, it had no limit. 3 days after I sent the invoice, my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't seen in years. Marissa Yates, Derek's ex-wife. We hadn't spoken since their divorce, an ugly, silent unraveling that Mom called a relief, honestly. I hesitated, then tapped the message open. Hey, Madeline. Sorry to pop in like this, but I think we need to talk. About Derek. A chill ran through me. I responded, Is this about the flight? She sent back a single thumbs-up emoji, then a PDF attachment. I didn't open it at first. My hands were trembling, but not from fear, from something more potent. Anticipation. When I finally tapped the file, the first page nearly knocked the air from my lungs. Bank statements, wire transfers, emails, all dated over the last year. Derek had access to a joint family emergency fund that Mom and Dad had created, or more accurately, funded by me, through reimbursements I never got, and family group costs I was guilted into covering. And what did Derek do with it? Crypto. High-risk, late-night gambling on shady platforms. 5, 0 here. 3, 200 there. All from that fund, all without informing anyone except, apparently, my parents. Because there it was, an email from Mom to Marissa. Please don't say anything. We'll cover the losses. Madeline doesn't need to know. And another from Dad. We'll fix this. Just don't involve Abigail, sorry, Madeline. She'd walk away for good if she found out. They knew. They all knew. They didn't warn me. Didn't stop him. Didn't protect me because they were protecting their comfort. I called Marissa instantly. She picked up on the second ring. I wasn't sure you'd even want to talk, she said. I'm listening, I said flatly. She told me everything. How Derek had started gambling again. How he promised to recover the losses with one big flip. How Mom and Dad begged her not to involve me because she's been through enough already. Marissa paused. I know what that means. It means they wanted your money, not your mess, and I couldn't sleep knowing they'd keep bleeding you. I sat in silence. The past 2 years, the exhaustion, the overdrafts, the quiet sacrifices, they weren't just bad luck or miscommunication. They were intentional. I thanked her. We hung up. Then I opened the invoice again, added an appendix labeled Supplemental Evidence, Derek Carter Misuse of Family Funds. Attached every document Marissa had sent me, and forwarded the entire file with new subject line. Updated claim, final, to the family group chat. CC'd. Aunt Janice, my parents' pastor, and just for good measure, Dad's company's HR department. That night, I slept with the window open. Cool air on my skin, no buzzing in my chest. No guilt, no nausea. Just peace. When I woke the next morning, the first notification was an alert from Dad's work website. His profile had been removed. I didn't cheer. I didn't even smile. I just poured my coffee and wrote in my journal. They wanted to hide the fire. I brought the light. And for once, I didn't feel like the villain. I felt like the truth. 3 days after I sent the updated invoice, a small white envelope arrived at my door. No return address. I recognized the handwriting immediately, Mom's. Perfect loops, too neat to be casual. Inside was a check. 270. Exactly the total I'd listed on the invoice. No more, no less. No note, no apology. Just silence with a $sign. I stared at the paper for a long time. It didn't feel like closure. It felt like containment. Like they were trying to make the evidence go away by throwing money at it. I didn't cash it, not right away. Instead, I pinned it to the corkboard above my desk next to a quote I had written in Sharpie months ago. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. That check wasn't an olive branch. It was a receipt. They weren't sorry. They were scared. Scared I'd keep exposing the cracks. Scared I'd tell the truth to the people they still wanted to impress. The next afternoon, I ran into Mom. Pure accident. I was getting coffee at a quiet downtown cafe near my hospital, hoodie up, earbuds in, half asleep when I heard her voice. Madeline. I looked up. She was smaller than I remembered. Not in size and presence. Like time had taken something from her, or maybe it was just me no longer holding it for her. She smiled like nothing had happened. like we hadn't gone to war with silence and spreadsheets. "Can we sit?" she asked softly. I nodded, more out of curiosity than kindness. She rambled for 10 minutes. Excuses masquerading as explanations. "We were just trying to hold the family together. We didn't realize how much you were carrying. If we could go back." I listened, but I didn't absorb. There was no mention of Derek's fraud, no ownership of the theft, no real apology, just emotional dress rehearsals where I was expected to play the role of forgiving daughter. Then came the inevitable question. "Do you hate us now?" I didn't flinch. "No," I said, "but I don't owe you anything anymore." She blinked. "But we're family." "That's not an argument," I replied calmly. "That's an excuse." She reached into her purse, pulled out another envelope. "I hope you'll come back to us someday," she said, then left. When I opened the envelope, it was another check. Another attempt to pay off what they refused to face. This time, I didn't pin it to the wall. I deposited both and donated every cent to a scholarship fund for young nurses supporting their families while in school. Because somewhere out there is another version of me. 22. Tired. Used. And believing she has to keep bleeding for love. I wanted her to know. She doesn't. It's been 6 months since I closed the door in my father's face. 6 months since I stopped answering voicemails soaked in guilt and stopped mistaking silence for peace. 6 months since I chose myself, not out of spite, but out of necessity. And no, it hasn't all been smooth. Healing isn't linear. Some days, I still catch myself reaching for the phone when something good happens that reflects to share, to hope someone in my family might actually be proud of me. But then I remember, I'm not missing their validation. I'm reclaiming my boundaries. David, the quiet, kind man I met in the hospital cafeteria, is still in my life. He's the first person who never asked me to bleed to prove I belonged. He listens. He doesn't flinch when I tell him the ugly parts. He just says, "You didn't deserve any of that, but you handled it with strength most people can't even name." We're moving in together this fall. A new place, bright windows, a small garden box I've been dreaming of. And no, I didn't ask anyone for help. Because I don't need their permission to build peace. As for the money they finally repaid, every dollar went into helping young nurses like I once was. The kind who support everyone but themselves. The kind who need to know they're not alone and they're not broken for saying no. I got one more letter from Danielle. 5 pages. No return address. A strange mix of apology and blame. "We all make mistakes. You took it too far. Mom cries every day. You've turned your back on blood." At the end, she wrote, "We're family. Nothing changes that." And I realized, she's right. Nothing does change that. That's what makes it worse. Because it wasn't strangers who used me. It was the people who knew me best, and still did it anyway. I folded the letter, placed it on top of the Marissa file, locked the drawer. It belongs in the past. On the night of my 30th birthday, I stood by the window of my new apartment. A small candle flickered on the table. David handed me a simple card. Inside, just 5 words. "You are not your past." I smiled, because I believed it. Fully, quietly, finally. I used to be the one they leaned on. Now, I stand tall on my own. The door they used to knock on? Still shut. Only this time the key is in my pocket. And it's staying there.